Good morning. Welcome to Churchill County Library Storytime. My name is Jess, and the book I have for you today is called The Three Bears and Goldilocks, written by Margaret Willey and Heather Solomon. And I'm reading this to you today with permission from Simon and Schuster. In the farthest reaches of the far north lived a girl named Goldilocks, who was bolder than most and very curious. One morning, her father wrapped a bright scarf around her neck and said, "It's all very well to love adventure, but you must be careful not to go into places where you don't belong." And Goldilocks listened, but she didn't really listen. She set off by herself into the forest to see what amusement she might find. She went along and she went along down a twisting path through tall pines and firs and junipers until she came to a sunny clearing where she could only see a small cabin with a heavy door. She was too curious to walk past. She thought, "I will go up to the door and knock 3 times and see if whoever lives there might invite me in to play." So she knocked 1, 2, 3. Well, no one answered, but the door opened just enough for Goldilocks to see inside. It was a room unlike any room she'd ever seen before. The floor was strewn with corner to corner with leaves and berry stems, pine cones, fish bones, and thick brown fur. No one could play in this messy place, thought Goldilocks. She took a raggedy broom from behind the door and began to sweep, thinking how proud her mother would be of her for wanting to help. She swept for a long time until the floors were clear and the pile outside the door was waist high. All of that work made Goldilocks very hungry, so she looked around the cabin for something to eat. Near the hearth were 3 bowls of still warm porridge. But it was unlike any porridge she'd ever seen. It was mixed with beetles, barks, lumps of grass, and fish scales. What awful porridge these folks eat, Goldilocks thought. But she was so hungry that she picked through all the lumps in the smallest bowl, sweetened what was left with honey from a honey jar, and ate every last bite. All that porridge made Goldilocks very tired, and she looked about for a comfortable place to rest. In a room at the back of the cabin, there were 3 beds, but they were unlike any beds Goldilocks had ever seen. They were really piles of straw and leaves and pine needles and bird feathers, and each pile was covered with a fuzzy blanket. What sort of family would sleep this way, Goldilocks thought. She climbed onto the largest pile and found it was made of mostly pine needles and was very hard and prickly. So she climbed onto the middle pile. It was made mostly of duck feathers, and she found it much too puffy and soft. The third pile was the smallest. It had a woolly blanket her own size, and the bed was very comfortable. She settled down with a sigh. "I will only shut my eyes for a moment or two," she thought. But before her next breath, she was sound asleep. Meanwhile, 3 bears came back from lumbering from a walk they had taken while their porridge cooled. When they saw the pile of sweepings outside of their door, Papa Bear let out a loud roar. "Who has come and made a mess of our fine house?" he cried. He saw that their front door was slightly open. "Shh," he said to the others. "We must go inside and look for clues." The 3 bears all came inside fearfully, with Papa Bear leading the way, sniffing the air and rolling his bearish head. When they came to the hearth, the three bears saw at once what had happened to their breakfast. Mama Bear cried, "Who has come inside and ruined my perfect porridge?" Baby Bear came up behind her and peered into his empty bowl. "Someone first ruined my porridge and then used all my honey and then ate every last bite." And he began to snuffle and cry. "Shh," said Papa Bear. "We must look for other clues." He lumbered through the cabin, baring his teeth, Mama and Baby Bear close behind him. When he came upon his bed, he saw that his blanket was rumpled. "Someone has come in and muscled my kingly bed," he cried. Mama Bear saw that her pile had sunk down and her blanket was also mussed. "Someone has come in and mussed my queenly bed too," she cried. But Baby Bear crouched over his own bed and he spoke in a voice that was more surprised than angry. "Someone has come in and mussed my bed, and look, Mama, here she very much still is." The three bears came closer to look in amazement at the sleeping Goldilocks. "Poor creature," said Papa Bear. "She has no soft fur but that odd patch on her head." "Poor creature," said Mama Bear. "She has no lovely claws for catching fish in the river." "Poor creature," said Baby Bear. "Her teeth are small and silly." They all three stared down at Goldilocks. At that very moment, Goldilocks woke from her nap and opened her eyes. Only inches away were the furry snouts and sharp teeth of the bears. She was too afraid even to blink. Behind the bears, she spied an open window, just enough for a little person to squeeze through. She jumped from the bed, dashed to the window, and wiggled through in a flash. And then she ran, and she ran, and she ran all the way back to her own house, where her father was setting the table. He asked, "Did you remember my advice today, child?" Goldilocks was still out of breath from running, and she gasped, "Yes, Papa. I must never, ever go heading into a cabin in the woods full of bears." "Well, that's not exactly what I said Father, but it's worth remembering." The end. Thanks for joining me today, and be sure to go online and sign up for the summer reading program. And if you have any questions, be sure to give us a call. And I will see you next time. Goodbye.